Hello, West Parish Church. I have not seen most of you in over a month. I'm conducting Sunday school and youth group online, so I may have seen you walk by in the background while I was talking to your kids on Zoom. But I miss you. I miss being with you in physical space. I miss holding your hands and looking into your face and saying, "Peace be with you." I miss hearing my voice and your voice blending together as we reach out to God. I miss the holy space of our sanctuary when it is filled with our bodies. It's the third Sunday of Easter when we in the Christian church remember the fundamental story of our faith, that Jesus was killed, but even after his death, his followers recognized his presence among them. Today's gospel reading from Luke is one of the stories of seeing Jesus in person after he died. But then, even then, his bodily presence is fleeting. The physical presence of the person they loved must have been so joyful, so exhilarating, but it wasn't long. In the years afterwards, when the community of Jesus's followers were not in his physical presence, they had to learn how to be. For the past year, in my own reading and in Bible study with some of you, I've been dwelling on that time in the early church, the time when people were trying to understand how to be without Jesus there. For a while, they didn't even have a name for themselves. They called themselves the people of the way. They knew that crisis had meant they had to live in a new way. A new way of life was forming in them, among them. We're going through something together right now in this time of pandemic and quarantine and social distance. We don't yet fully understand how we are changing, what we are becoming. We know that this crisis is forming us. The question is, will we allow it to reform us? The biblical scholar Walter Brueggemann wrote a blog post recently about this very thing called God's New Thing. He says, perhaps we are arriving at a new neighborly normal. Imagine, we are treating prisoners differently, even releasing some who constitute no threat. Imagine we are mobilizing generous financing for needy neighbors who must have resources in order to survive. Imagine we are finding generous provisions for students and their debts. The new thing God is making possible is a world of generous neighborly compassion. It is before our very eyes. The God who does this new thing has also said, do not remember former things. We have so much we will do well to forget. The good news is that we need not go back to those old ways. But that's not where we are right now. We're not there yet. We're in a time before that time. Brueggemann is a scholar of the Psalms. He reminds us that church is not just a place for celebration or worship or hope. It's also a place for lament. So many Psalms, like Psalm 116, have a three-part structure that reflects the pattern of human life. The first part is orientation, a place where everything feels right and content in our lives. The second is disorientation, when life feels difficult and dark and broken. There is lament, there is despair. And then reorientation. When God pulls us out of the brokenness of life, we're brought into a deeper sense of awareness and gratitude. We're in the middle time, the time he calls disorientation. Like the early Christians, when they lost the bodily presence of Jesus. Like we are when we don't have the usual physical people in our lives, the routines that were like signposts for us. Without those signposts, disorientation. I have appreciated Katrina's writing and preaching in these past few weeks because they've acknowledged an underlying sense that this time of quarantine has been harder than we expected, has been revealing of our vulnerability and weakness in a very uncomfortable way. And not all of us are doing so well. Even though when people ask, we might say, I'm fine, we're fine. My own experience is being home with 4 children. Without those outlets that I used to have for my stress and my tension, I hit on one solution near the beginning, and that was to get my mind off of things by making masks out of my unused cotton sheets. So I could send them to hospitals so I could feel useful. So I could feel like I was supporting people. A small attempt to do something in this time of feeling out of control. And then after 2 days of working over this sewing machine, bending down, my whole back and my neck seized up in debilitating pain, very unexpectedly. And I, of course, gained a new appreciation for those people who have to do this physical work that is repetitive day after day in normal life. So it went on like that in these past weeks, the ups and the downs. And like friends I know, the tears over little things, over the happy stories, over the small sadnesses that feel small compared to the bigger ones and yet still feel big. And then came shame, because I haven't been doing as well as I thought I might in crisis. The Psalms are an echo from 2,500 years ago of loss, of longing, and then of hope. Hear the words of the psalmist. The cords of death entangle me, the anguish of the grave came over me. I was overcome by distress and sorrow. To hear our other people's experiences that echo our own, that is a salve, that is a balm, that is why we have the Psalms. I asked my friends to share with me what's happening in them in these weeks. The pattern of the chorus of voices that responded was about that confusing mixture we're feeling, the swinging back and forth between gratitude and grief, fear and relief. To me, their voices sound like bravery and lament and hope all at once. Out of this mixture, may we be reformed individually and collectively into God's new thing. Now I'm going to close by sharing the words of my friend Karen, who wrote this when I asked what is happening inside of her during this time. I am seeing the beauty of our world It's a blessing to see nature being more dominant than humans. I love being surrounded by my family and spending quality time with them. I am learning a lot more about how different each of them are. I am calming anxiety and worries. I am mourning the loss of 2 wonderful parents who passed with COVID-19, and I don't want to say goodbye. I'm worried for my mom's mental health, as she's had to shield alone. Being isolated would be my worst nightmare, so I feel for her. But most of all, I feel peace. Sun on my face, air in my lungs, birds singing, a deeper appreciation for life and for what we have. Amen.